Hello and welcome from the State of Affairs podcast. Today we are up with something that's very different and very unique in its own dimensions and right. Is that we're talking about hydropolitics. I mean, most of about the South Asian perspective. Importantly, apart from all the international relations discourse, this very important topic has its own way and has its own importance in the larger geopolitical equation of the South Asia as a region. I have also got with me a very good scholar uh, on the subject of hydropolitics, how geopolitically it has become an important part, and how experiences from India, Bhutan, India, Bangladesh, and India, Nepal, for example, can contribute to the larger discourse on the bilateral or multilateral arrangements of hydropolitics in the region or throughout the world. I have got with me Vanshika Singh. She is a research scholar at the Hyderabad Central University, a very uh, reputed voice on this subject. She is conducting a research paper on this only. She'll be talking about this entire thing of hydropolitics. Why is it so much important? What's the historical part of it? And what is the role of India and the other countries that are sharing this transnational, this transboundary rivers and their basins. Say, for example, we have Ganga Basin, we have some other rivers that are having transboundary existence. And this can perhaps be a replica for the countries of the region, especially India can play a leading role into that. And the nature of the hydropolitics has changed over the time. Earlier, it used to be a state to state, state. It was a state domain only. Today, people to people contacts. Today, civil society contacts, and also the important part of different stakeholders. Say, for example, non-governmental organizations can contribute in creating a conducive atmosphere for actually creating a discourse and a narrative around this hydropolitics. First of all, I would like to welcome her. She's a very good friend of mine, and also she's a good research scholar at the Hyderabad Central University. Welcome to the podcast, Vanshika.
Hi, Mehraj. Thank you so much for inviting and letting me give the opportunity to share whatever knowledge have I gained in the last 2 years during my academic exercise. So thanks a lot.
I have been looking forward to this podcast since, I guess, 10-15 days now, when I first dropped an invitation to you. Let's briefly just run down to this thing. What draws a brief overview of this entire hydropolitics thing, because most of the people might just confuse it with something else. So I guess the stage is all yours to actually introduce this topic to our viewers and also to me. So you can just pick it up from there.
Mehraj, I would like to begin my talk with a very simple statement. A lot of research scholars on hydropolitics can agree to the fact that water is politics. You cannot quintessentially differentiate between water and politics. Water is very integrally related to politics of the region. So from here, I come to the term hydropolitics. Hydropolitics, I think in the most easy way, I can define when two or more than two actors come together on a platform to interact over sharing, allocation, distribution, and other management and allocation issues on water resources, that can be called as hydropolitics. Now, the term hydropolitics itself has, over the time, grown in its scope. A lot of debates have occurred over it. Say, in 1990s, whenever the term water politics or hydropolitics would come up, scholars would see it just in pure dichotomies of either two countries are under a water conflict or two countries are cooperating over water treaties. Over time, there came a general consensus among all the scholars that no, it cannot be just categorized into two strict dichotomies. It's very much possible that two states can simultaneously be cooperating over waters also and can be on a conflict also. A very simple example can be in India-Pakistan, a very simple example. India-Pakistan is said to be the Indus Water Treaties. It's said to be one of the most effective water treaties in the world. So yes, they are definitely cooperating, and it's very much praiseworthy for this treaty to have been effective for over 50, 60 years, despite these countries being into 2-3 wars. But a very few people know that there are several underlying conflictual issues on water only that's going between these two countries. Say there is no water sharing treaty for groundwaters related to aquifers, irrigation issues. So there are other 100 issues also where these two countries are on conflictual terms also. So in 2000s, there came a general consensus between scholars that water politics or hydropolitics cannot be on extremes of either conflict or cooperation. It's usually a continuum from conflict to cooperation. Sometimes the cooperation goes up, conflict is down. Sometimes conflict is up, cooperation is down. Second, and a very interesting development that has taken place, I would say, in like last 10, 15 years is usually when you talk about water diplomacy, water politics, we have always just accounted for the role of state actors. You talk about hydropolitics, you talk about hydrohegemony, how India is the hydrohegemon of South Asia, China, larger hydrohegemon. Then when you talk about power asymmetries, a lot of rhetoric and discourses around transboundary water negotiations has just focused on interactions between state actors. Whenever we talk about two countries cooperating, we'll just focus on treaties and institutional agreements. So very interesting discourse that has emerged in the last 10 years is, what is it that the non-state actors can contribute to facilitating water cooperation in a region? So currently the research area that I was focusing on is India-Nepal water cooperation and the role of non-state actors that can help in facilitating water governance. Because we can see in case of India-Nepal, the last institutionalized treaty that came was in 1996, Mahakali Treaty and the Pancheshwar Dam project. It's been around 30, 35 years, and yet there has been no progress on the issue. So my study focuses on looking at transboundary water negotiations, especially in South Asia and specifically in India-Nepal context, from a multi-stakeholder, multi-track water diplomacy framework, where how we can bring in non-state actors and state actors at a platform and build trust and inclusivity and go forth with water governance. Yeah.
You have mentioned, the importance of hydropolitics from where you started, and you left with this India-Nepal, I guess, or India-Bhutan bilateral treaty, or you also mentioned about Indus Water Treaty that has been in the news also for different reasons. It depends upon the level of the conflict and the nature of the conflict. At times it goes up and down. So my simple observation would be on this is that it's not only about water that two countries or say, for example, 5 countries are sharing. There is not only this is not only the matter that pertains to upper riparian state or a lower riparian state, or a state that's at the upstream or the state that's at the downstream. There are also environmental costs that are involved. There are also cultural costs that are involved. There are also some other factors that contribute to this. That's why it has become such an important thing. Say, for example, if we talk about the Ganga Basin, obviously you have worked on that. I would like you to delve upon the Ganga Basin. Say, for example, it's a river that's being shared by India, Nepal, and Bangladesh
Bangladesh.
at the lower points of it. You just delve on that point so that we'll get a larger perspective about how this bilateral or multilateral framework works. What are the factors that contribute to this thing?
Before starting that, definitely, I would like to first delve into why is water such an important issue in South Asia? Like you said, why cannot water be just water? Why is it related to politics? Why is it related to nationalism? Because we see a lot of rhetoric around when after the Pulwama attack, how top leaders from India, they started saying blood and water cannot flow together at the same time. Basically, in a region like South Asia, first, the first important fact that I would like to state about South Asia is one of the, it's a well-known fact, South Asia is one of the most densely populated regions in the world. Around 40% of the world population lives in South Asia, and which is subsisting on just 4% of water resources in the world. So now you imagine this very small fact gives water a very, very, very central place in the geopolitics of the region. First. Second, in a country, in a region like South Asia, which is also one of the least integrated regions in the world, water, it's very easy to securitize the issue of water. Say, only Nepal and Bhutan are the two countries in South Asia which have water availability, per capita water availability, more than the global average. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, all these three countries are well below the per capita water availability. So of course, the first thing that comes to the mind is that the issue of water is not just related to politics, it's also a very well a security concern. Now with security concern, what comes up is that water, which is like ever flowing, which knows no boundaries, it's obvious that countries will try to link it with their sovereignty. They will try to possess it. So it's easy to build a nationalist rhetoric around water. So most countries, you see now to India, Nepal, India, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, water is such an emotive issue. It's so close to people's heart. The river, especially when we talk about Ganga, we all know the profound importance of Ganga in the the importance that it holds for the Indian country, which means waters from these rivers will definitely be linked to the national sovereignty, the integrity of the countries. So I think when you talk about water, the other issues linked to water comes national security concerns. That's the very reason why a lot of water related data India considers to be highly classified. Why? Because it's related to a national security concern. So water is not just an issue related to the hydro or water-based interactions between countries. It's very much a national security concern, considering the scarce resources in South Asia. Number two, it's also very much inbuilt in the nationalist rhetoric of the countries. And third, it's related to the, let's talk about the environmental, since you talked about the environmental perspectives to the issue also. As I said, water is the glaciers. With the increasing complexities that are coming with climate change and global warming, a lot of glaciers are melting, which means it is going to lead to a lot of changes in the hydrological scenarios of the region, which means some regions will go under droughts, some regions will go under flood. And if countries don't come together to cooperate and manage these waters, it's very much possible that while two countries can be fighting over mitigating the flood effects of water, the other two countries can be fighting over how to get enough water for sustenance. I was building all this narrative just to emphasize my point that water being linked to national security, nationalism, and the environmental concerns of the region makes it very, very necessary for countries to come together on a common table and talk over water. Also, there's one very important point I would like to make over here, Mehraj. I believe water has a great potential for peacemaking. One of the most obvious examples that almost everyone gives is the India-Pakistan angle. How India-Pakistan have every day there are bullets being fired on the border regions, but these two countries are still willing to come to a common table and talk about water, to collaborate over water. So water can also be, water cooperation, if enforced and if implemented in the right direction, it can be a very, very effective tool for peacemaking. The same thing we can talk about Israel, Palestine, and Jordan. One of the most complicated conflict issues in the world, yet these three countries are again coming together to collaborate over water. Because more than anything, water has the potential to make countries come together and talk over it. Water conflicts, I'm telling you, Mehraj, and a lot of research scholars agree to it, they have the potential. Water conflicts are different from other conflicts in this very single dimension, that in all other conflicts, two countries can aggravate it. But only water conflict can be one of those conflicts where countries will choose to cooperate and not aggravate the conflict. So basically for me, the one thing that is fundamentally needed in the South Asian region, which is one of the least integrated regions of the world, is a multi-track, multi-stakeholder platform where representatives from both countries, and not just state actors, mind you, we want representatives from the local communities, we want representatives from the journalist section, because journalism and the narratives from the media, they play a major role, and they can play a major role in transforming water conflicts. Representatives from academic section, because there's a lot of research being held by academia, but there's a science policy gap between it, because there's no proper platform where the diplomats, the official representatives of the states and academic sections can come and talk over it, and they make their research of some issue. So we want a platform where people from academia, people from journalism, the local representatives from borders, and of course the state representatives come together and negotiate and deliberate over water issues. If you want, I can give a very nice example that's going on right beside Brahmaputra dialogue. It's one major initiative that's going on. Brahmaputra is again one of the most complex river basins in the world, with not 2, 3, at least 6 to 7 countries involved in the region. But we have a very, very effective multilateral, multi-track water diplomacy framework called as Brahmaputra dialogue going over it. And it's very effective, where representatives from all 6, 7 countries, including China, are coming over and talking over it and making and facilitating sustainable water governance in the region.
That's the beautiful summation of this entire importance of the hydropolitics in the region, and what are the issues, what are the other segments that are related to it, and how it can be a kind of a peacemaking thing if countries are willing to cooperate, and they do cooperate on most of the issues when it comes to the water sharing the waters of the rivers. I will also like you to detail, in detail, just delve upon this thing, that there is an existing platform between India, Nepal, India, Bhutan, and India, Bangladesh on the Ganga Basin. Can we just extrapolate a bit on about that, so that the viewers and I also will get enlightened about that? You have worked on the Ganga Basin, particularly on India, Nepal, or India, Bhutan.
Mehraj, that's the whole point. My research focuses on the role and the potential of non-stakeholders. The non-stakeholders they very much need the state support. The very reason why India-Nepal water cooperation has not fructified in all these years is because the deliberation, the water negotiation process has not been very inclusive of all the stakeholders. However, during the course of my study, I realized that a lot of such projects are being active in the region. It's just that the academic and the policy discourses need to bring them forth and build on them. For instance, there are a lot of traditional organizations active in India-Nepal water cooperation, a lot of village panchayats, which have been traditionally, a lot of women-led initiatives have been there in the region, which in a very local, in a very small ways, they have been facilitating water cooperation. But whenever we talk about India-Nepal water cooperation, the one thing that gets highlighted the most, it's the institutionalized treaties. We talk about the Gandak Treaty, the Kosi Treaty, the Mahakali Treaty, and that's the end to it. What I emphasize on is the need to build on these, first to bring them forth in academic and the policy discourses, and to build on them. But yeah, all these village panchayats and all, they have over the years degraded. Why have they degraded? Because they didn't receive state support that much. Because whenever they would approach the local administration for some issue, the administration would say that it's a national security matter, only the national level officials are supposed to deal with it. So over the years, these local level institutions have all degraded. I can bring a very simple example of how in again, India-Pakistan, I'm trying to bring a comparative analysis of India, Nepal and India-Pakistan every now and then, because India and Pakistan are two countries whose animosity is highlighted and known in the world. One of the most complex conflicts that two countries can be engaged in, that's India-Pakistan. But again, there is a platform called as Indus Basin Knowledge Platform that is very active and that is working on the river Indus Basin. That deals, again, the very same concept of Brahmaputra dialogue. People coming from academia section, journalist section, the local representatives, and of course the state diplomats coming together, deliberating over it on how to go forth with other water, build local governance structures, and deliberating over water negotiations. In my study, what I found was, whether it comes to India, Nepal, or India, Bangladesh also, it has mostly been state to state led negotiations. And that, I believe, is one of the major drawbacks why treaties in the two countries have not been implemented very effectively. India-Nepal, Mahakali Treaty, 30 years, no development. India-Bangladesh, the treaty, the Ganga Treaty, 1996, 30 years, again, no very subsequent, very substantive development on that. So this is my whole argument, that when we can have such platforms, such multi-track, multi-water diplomacy platforms in Pakistan, with India, Pakistan, two countries which no one in the world can think that they are cooperating also, if they are cooperating on the water. The other side, we have the Brahmaputra dialogue, where even China is the hegemon, which is written like it was for a very long time believed that China is not willing to cooperate on water resources. Why? Because it's the hegemon. China is the only country that India has no treaties with. In such a dialogue, even if China is willing to cooperate, then why is it that something like this cannot come up with India, Nepal, or India, Bhutan, or India, Bangladesh for that matter? So this is what my research has been building on, that we need to strengthen the local structures which have not been done substantially.
And where do you see this thing with this discourse, I mean, going in the future? If say, for example, the per capita water availability and its demand will increase many folds, given the global warming at which rate it's going up. Where do you see the importance of such, initiatives? Say, for example, track to diplomacy, water diplomacy on that side. How is it going to play its part? And is it seriously now that it has to be acknowledged that there is an importance at the state level? State has to back it in the South Asian region, has to back this entire narrative of facilitating a dialogue, striking a cooperation among the states, irrespective of their bilateral engagement and the nature of it. Is it such an imperative? How is it going to shape in the future? Where does the important thing lie? Where are the things that are going to come in order to facilitate such dialogues? You have emphasized on this thing, that there is an importance to back initiatives like that, so that countries can use it as a medium in order to engage more on this issue, because it's an issue that's transnational, that's so important and basic, and always also includes amount of security in it. So where do you see this thing going in the future?
Mehraj, I can just give you one very simple example to highlight the relevance of such a multi-track, multi-stakeholder platform when it comes to transboundary water governance. India and Nepal, most of the treaties, the 3-4 treaties that they have signed together, deals with not just water sharing, but with flood control and irrigation. But every year, I think now it's the monsoon time coming in like the next couple of months, every single year we see there are floods that ruin almost lakhs of life in Bihar and UP borders and Nepal borders. Why does that happen? Someone would think that that happens because maybe some larger issue. I can tell you one small thing. There is such a lack of communication between the two countries that when the river levels rise in the Nepal borders and the small rivers on Nepal, by the time the people from Nepal borders communicate to the Indian side of the borders, the damage has already been done. As small as an issue like lack of communication that's on time and on point. Now imagine a multi-track, a multi-stakeholder platform which involves people that are locally involved in these matters on a day-to-day basis, who have direct contact, who have a direct platform to work around with the state officials. If such a platform is there, how effectively and how efficiently can we mitigate the effects of the flood that every single year ruin almost crores of life? It's just as simple as that yes, with definitely the more consequences climate change and global warming will bring forth, the more dire it's the need for countries to come together and collaborate on it. Because as I mentioned earlier, it can very much be possible that while India and Pakistan will be fighting over issues like not having enough water from the Indus waters, and India and Bangladesh again fighting over how Bangladesh is not getting enough waters and how India is diverting most of the waters for its Kolkata port. At the same time, India and Nepal will be fighting over how there is too much water and that water is flooding. So now you imagine the lack of communication, the lack of a basin-wide collaboration approach, the lack of inclusive and sustainable water management structures is what South Asia needs the most, because being as densely populated a country it is, and it's not like South Asia is also one of the most scarce resource-based countries, because of course we have the whole Himalayan glaciers to us. So we cannot say that we are like resource deprived as such. With India, with the region of Indian subcontinent and South Asia, the problem has mostly been water management. How one region can be flooding and two countries will be fighting over flood matters while the rest of the neighbors will be fighting over droughts. So I believe such a multi-stakeholder platform where people from all levels, the local representatives, the district level administration, very important, the state level people, because you see in the case of India and Bangladesh, what is one of the most important factors? It's the federalism, the state politics, the West Bengal politics also comes into role. So we need a multi-track, multi-stakeholder platform where district officials, state officials, and then the national level officials working around with collaboration with the local representatives, the journalists, and the academic section is the need of the hour, I would like to say. And the more graver the consequences of climate change and global warming, and the more unmanageable the effects of droughts and floods get, the more is the imperative on the part of the states and non-state actors to come and collaborate over.